For 16 and a half years, we've been used as political scapegoats. The police told us from the start that they knew we hadn't done it. They told us they didn't care who done it. They told us that we were going to frame us. Justice! I don't think them people in there have got the intelligence nor the honesty to spell the word. Never mind dispense it.
Those were the words bellowed outside the Old Bailey on the 14th of March 1991 by Paddy Hill, one of the Birmingham Six wrongfully convicted of the 1974 Birmingham pub bombings immediately after the Court of Appeal overturned their convictions. The 21st of November 2024 marked the 50th anniversary of the tragic bombings that not only claimed 21 lives and injured 200 others, but also devastated the lives of 6 innocent men and their families. It is clear that 2 tragedies unfolded that day. One endured by the families of those killed and injured in the pubs, and the other borne by the 6 men and their families who were unjustly made to pay the price for the atrocity. What's even more heartbreaking is that no one has ever been held accountable for either of those tragedies. Sadly, Paddy Hill passed away on the 30th of December 2024. Curiously, just over a month after the 50th anniversary of the events that led to his wrongful conviction. Almost as if to make a poignant statement. We extend our deepest condolences to his family and friends and to all the innocent individuals he helped along the way who were also caught in the system. Welcome to Spoken Injustice, where we put the criminal justice system in the dock. Today our video is part of our personal stories playlist and is dedicated to Paddy Hill. In this video, we do not aim to retell the story of Paddy Hill or the Birmingham Six, as it has already been recounted by many through various mediums, often with a visual impact far beyond what we can achieve with our small, non-funded community channel. Our goal is to explore the profound and often lifelong impact of miscarriages of justice. While the overturning of a wrongful conviction is a moment of triumph, it marks only the beginning of a complex and often painful journey of recovery. The shadow of injustice lingers long after the legal battle has ended, leaving emotional, psychological, and social scars that shape the lives of those affected. In this video, we will start by examining briefly the experiences of several individuals who have endured wrongful convictions and the unique ways in which each person was affected, highlighting the diverse challenges they faced. From there, we will then focus on the remarkable yet harrowing experience of Paddy Hill, whose wrongful conviction and eventual exoneration shook public trust in the justice system. Drawing on his many interviews, we will reflect on the lessons his story offers about injustice, trauma, and human capacity for perseverance. We invite you to join us for this thought-provoking exploration. Stay with us until the end to form your own conclusion about the issue we raise, and we would love to hear your perspectives, so be sure to share your thoughts in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Your support helps us reach a wider audience and strengthens our efforts to drive meaningful reform. Thank you. As you may recall, Professor Greenberg highlighted that in very rare cases, wrongful convictions can lead to post-traumatic growth. In such instances, individuals emerge with a sense of near invincibility, believing that if they could endure what they have been through, they can overcome almost anything. Michael O'Brien, despite the persistent PTSD that still affects him, as he told us, could perhaps be considered one such case. However, Professor Greenberg explained that the effects of a wrongful conviction are overwhelmingly negative in most cases and tend to persist long after the wrongful conviction has been overturned. In our view, Paddy Hill and Sally Clark are enduring symbols of the devastating consequences of miscarriages of justice, particularly the profound loss of one's identity. We have already seen these effects in Sally Clark, who never recovered and tragically passed away just a few years after her conviction was overturned. In her own words, as captured in her book, she described how the ordeal stripped her of her identity. She was no longer the person she once was. This loss of identity is also a recurrent theme in Paddy Hill's reflections. In many of his interviews, he attributes his change in identity to years he spent in prison for a crime he did not commit. However, their emotional responses to this shared trauma differed significantly. While Hill externalized his feelings through expression of deep anger, Clark internalized hers, retreating into isolation. If we were to assign emotional labels, Sally Clark's experience might be characterized by immense shame, while Paddy Hill's would be defined by profound anger. This difference may stem from the nature of the crimes they were accused of. Sally Clark was accused of crimes that struck at the core of her identity as a mother. Sally must have focused on the shame she felt, despite her innocence, which must have been most likely overwhelming. It's crucial to distinguish here between shame and guilt. Even without guilt, one can feel profound shame simply because of the unspeakable thoughts and judgments others may harbor. In addition, she was a solicitor and so was her husband, and her father served as a police officer, making the legal system an integral part of her identity. It wasn't just her profession or her family's legacy, it was a core aspect of how she understood herself and the world around her. When the faith she once had in this system, a system she trusted and contributed to, was shattered, it didn't simply challenge her beliefs, it fundamentally altered her sense of self. Whilst for Paddy Hill, the focus was on the injustice of being framed, knowing that the system was aware they were being set up and used as scapegoats. The anger he expressed in the moments immediately after his release, as shown in the excerpts we played at the beginning of today's video, never faded. Combining two interviews in particular, the one with Liam Garvin 10 years after his release and the one with Stephen Sacker on Hard Talk 20 years after his release, both of which are linked in the description below, we can observe how his anger remained unwavering, just as raw and vivid as it was on the day he walked free, evidencing that the events which led to his wrongful convictions, and most poignantly, those that followed his wrongful conviction, as we will see later, marked his entire existence. Paddy Hill's enduring sense of anger was a central theme of his life after release, and he articulated its roots with searing clarity in many of his interviews. His rage stemmed from two profound injustices. First, there was the harrowing experience of serving a prison sentence for a crime he did not commit. Hill often spoke of how prison life fundamentally changes a person, not abruptly, but through a slow, insidious erosion of one's feelings, identity, and humanity.
Oh, and of course, when you're in prison and you tell them you're innocent, the only thing you're guaranteed is a hard time on the merry-go-round. And I had plenty of that moving from one prison to another. Out of the 16 and a half years that I was in prison, I probably spent at least 8 of that in solitary confinement because I wouldn't conform to the prison system. Prison conditions you so subtly, you don't even know you're being conditioned. It's like a soldier. The only thing is a soldier has a choice. He joins the army of his own free will. But when he joins the army on Monday, they don't send him to Iraq or Afghanistan on the Tuesday. They train him for what he's going to be involved in to the best of their ability. So he knows what he's getting in. With us, we were just suddenly plucked off and then thrown into the prison system. And we were the most hated prisoners in the prison system. Prison officers were offering people hundreds of pounds to stab us. But, as I say, you become conditioned to live in prison. And it's like a soldier who's living in a battle in a battle zone. Hey, sooner or later he'll adapt to his surroundings. He has to if he wants to survive, and we have to do the same. And prison, not only that, but prison kills your emotions. You die a little bit every day, and then one day you're waking up. Don't ask me what day, but one day you will waking up and you know that you are changed forever.
Clearly, this unjust incarceration left deep scars on his psyche. However, what fueled his anger even more intensely was the complete lack of accountability for the torture and abuse he and the others endured. Hill frequently highlighted that while being wrongfully imprisoned was horrific, the failure of the system to hold anyone responsible for their mistreatment was a second, equally, if not even more devastating injustice. He and the others were framed, brutalized, subjected to cruelty, yet no one faced the consequences for these acts. In Hill's eyes, this compounded his suffering, being forced to endure not just the injustice of wrongful conviction, but also the bitter reality that those who orchestrated and perpetuated these abuses walked free. For him, this was a betrayal not only of justice, but of basic humanity.
We've got one of the most rottenest, corrupted, perverted systems in the world, second to none. And I'm not saying that just to be bitchy. I would love to stand here and say that we have a wonderful system, but we haven't. We have a system that is totally out of control. We have a police force in this country that's totally unaccountable to us, the public, who pay for their wages. Our servants, the police, have got more rights than we have. They're the only people in the country today who practice the right to silence. They have the audacity to tell us the crime doesn't pay. But for all the crooked cops, and let me tell you something, there's been over 1,000 of us released in the last 12 years from the courts, and not one crooked cop has gone to jail. Not one has even stood trial, and most of them have retired on the grounds of ill health with 80% inflation-proof pensions, and then they have the audacity to tell us the crime doesn't pay. It pays well if you're a crooked cop in this country, believe me, and no further action is taken against them. And this is this is the things that we are combating, and the evidence which people are being convicted in our courts is diabolical. Our judges are unaccountable. They allow things to happen in court that defy common sense and logic. They come out with statements that are totally astounding, and they too are not accountable for anything that they say or do. Well, I don't mind that But one thing I do say is that according to the so-called democracy that we have in this country, that we're all supposed to be equal under the eyes of the law, the letter of the law. And if that is perfectly true, I don't mind being held accountable for my actions. I've always weighed up the pros and cons of what I was going to do. If I'd done it, I knew what was facing me. I was quite prepared to take it. I knew what it would result in. But if I'm going to be held accountable for my actions, and so is all of us, the public, then the very least we should have is our servants being held accountable for their actions. And if that is not happening, then believe me, we're not living in a democracy. What we're living in this country is a subtle form of dictatorship.
And it was a wound that never healed. It is deeply unsettling to watch him on Hard Talk recount how he would wake up each morning with a sense of unease, tension and adrenaline, which left him with an overwhelming urge to go to the police station on Queen's Road in Birmingham and shoot the police.
All I think about is getting a gun and shooting police.
Exactly.
How can you say that?
Because that's all I think about. My worst time is the morning. I don't sleep. I went to bed this morning at 1:15. I was in the kitchen having a cup of coffee at 3:25. I went back to bed at 4 o'clock. I'm back up again at 6:10. We don't sleep, we just catnap. And I don't know what happens when I go to sleep. I don't remember what I dream about. Very, very rare. Sometimes I have little snatches. But what I do remember is when I waken up, when I come round and the blood is pumping through your veins and the tension and the adrenaline flow, and all I think about is walking into that police station on Queen's Road in Aston in Birmingham. Just like one of them, like Arnie and what have you, one of them films with a big machine gun and going, here, take this, and shooting every one of them. And believe me, I sit there and I smile at it.
And you recognise that that is extraordinarily damaging to you.
Exactly.
I mean, that is corrosive. You are trapped.
I know I'm trapped.
Thankfully, that urge never came to fruition. In our view, this was partly because, amidst his intense anger, he found the motivation and strength to channel his trauma into something positive. He used part of the compensation money he received to establish MOJO, Miscarriage of Justice organization, a unique victim support group dedicated to help innocent people in prison and supporting them after their release. Hill founded this organization in 2001, a decision that, in our view, in part helped balance his trauma. We deeply commend him for demonstrating such remarkable strength of character despite the haunting memories and the nightmares that consumed much of his days and nights. Paddy Hill's profound frustration stemmed from the fact that despite his tireless efforts, no one was ever held accountable for the injustices he and the others endured. This lack of accountability compounded the trauma of his wrongful conviction, as it denied him the sense of justice and closure that might have helped to alleviate some of his suffering. His inability to see anyone punished for framing and torturing him left a deep wound, reinforcing his anger and sense of betrayal by the very system meant to protect him. This unaddressed accountability intensified his trauma, as it symbolized a broader failure of the system to acknowledge or rectify its wrongs. Hill's efforts to channel his pain into advocacy, such as founding MOJO, were extraordinary, but they were not a substitute for the justice he so desperately sought. Paddy Hill's story teaches us two vital lessons. First, we must persist in our mission to challenge and expose the failings of the justice system. As Paddy Hill himself emphasized, it wasn't the system that freed him, but rather the power of public outcry.
See, when I get people come to me as just a member of their family's just been, as they claim, being fitted up, just been found guilty and they're innocent, right? And I tell the people, listen, you see the government,
You see all the so-called good people, but when you go to them, you're going to be very, very shocked, and you're going to be sickened by the response you get from the good people. Because the people that you think are there to help you will turn their back on you. But there's a good side of it. You're going to get help from the most unexpected sources you ever thought of. And that's perfectly true. And let me tell you something. We didn't get out of court. We didn't get our convictions overturned because of the government or the courts. I'll tell you what we got our conviction overturned. Public outcry. The one thing about the British public, when they see an injustice, they are not afraid to stand up and scream about it.
This demonstrates the importance of continually advocating for those trapped by miscarriages of justice. We must shine a light on these cases, demand their acknowledgement, and fight tirelessly to secure justice for the innocent. However, our responsibility cannot end there. It is not enough to simply highlight these failures. We must go further and push for systemic reform. A justice system that prioritizes protecting itself from exposure over admitting its errors cannot be trusted. To restore faith in justice, the system must recognize and rectify its mistakes and critically hold those responsible for miscarriages of justice accountable. Paddy Hill's profound frustration serves as a stark reminder of why accountability is essential. For survivors of miscarriages of justice, it's not just about being freed. It is about finding peace and resolution. Without accountability, their trauma remains unaddressed, their faith in the system irreparably damaged, and their ability to reintegrate into society severely hindered. The credibility of any justice system hinges on its willingness to take responsibility for its failures. By ensuring accountability, we not only honor the experience of those wrongfully convicted, but also strengthen the integrity of the system itself, paving the way for a more just and equitable future. And are there other lessons you believe we can learn from Paddy Hill's detailed account of his frustrations and experiences? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. This brings us to the end of today's video. I hope it has offered some insight, particularly if you or a loved one are currently enduring the limbo of serving a prison sentence for a crime you did not commit. If that's your situation, please feel free to share your story in the comments below or reach out to us through our networking hub at spokeninjustice.net. We are here to help amplify your voice and ensure your story is heard. Join us again as we sit and rise in this unique trial.